Welcome to Kids Camp. It's time again for Critters in God's Creation. I'm Keith Nelson from Camp Kalakwa, a very beautiful corner of God's creation down in Florida. That's where the animals that you'll be seeing are coming from. In fact, I love animals, don't you?
Yes.
How many of you have pets at home? Yeah, that's just about everybody. Now let's see if we can ask you some more questions. How many of you love to swim? Yeah? You know, when I was your age, I was probably learning how to swim. And maybe some of you are learning how to swim. Did you know that most animals are born knowing how to swim? Well, some never learn. Just like some people never really get comfortable with swimming, some of God's creatures are made for the water, and we call that aquatic. Some of the creatures that God designed are terrestrial. Terrestrial, what does that mean, do you think? And Lydia, what does terrestrial mean?
They stay on land.
That's right, they're land dwellers. Nice answer, Lydia. And so maybe some of you prefer to be land dwellers. Some might even stay swimming all day, I don't know. But what's the difference between a tortoise and a turtle? Let's see if we can ask someone that. Does someone know? What's the difference between a tortoise and a turtle? All right, Jude, shall we give you a shot?
Because tortoises are bigger.
They are kind of big, aren't they? They can come in all sizes. Good point. Anyone else? Maybe Noah?
A tortoise stays on land and a turtle goes in the water.
That's very good, Noah. So tortoises are land or terrestrial, and turtles are aquatic based. They love to swim and spend most of their time swimming. Today, we have a tortoise. His name is Ralph. Let's see if we can bring him out. And here he comes. He's a full-grown one. Tortoises can get big and huge and weigh up to 200 pounds. Thank you, Andrea. This tortoise right here is barely about 8 or 9 inches in diameter or around. And that means he's pretty much an adult in his type of tortoise. He is a Russian tortoise, all the way from Russia. And although Mr. Ralph here may never have actually been to Russia himself, his relatives are over there, and you'll notice something interesting about him. Let's see if I can ask Caleb here a question on the front row. Caleb, how many toes do you see on the front paw?
4.
4, that's correct. That's where he gets his other nickname, four-toed tortoise. Because most tortoises have 5, like you have 5 fingers on your hands. He only has 4 on his front. And they're specially designed for digging, and in his case, we call it burrowing. Does anyone know what burrowing means? Let's give Sophia a shot.
Burrowing means to dig.
To dig a hole that goes right down in the ground. That's right, Sophia. He can dig holes in a matter of minutes, deep enough to bury himself. That's how he can hide from maybe even a wildfire that could be passing over, or he could even hide from some enemies, but he doesn't have many enemies. With a big old tank or shell, this is called a carapace. Can you say carapace? Carapace. That's right. That's the home that he takes with him. He can't leave it. A tortoise can't come out of his carapace or shell because that's part of him. That's like his skeleton. Your bones, all of them are on the inside. Some of his are on the outside. And he can feel it. When I scratch his back, he's like, oh yeah, scratch my back, just like you like a back scratch. He has the feeling right there in his shell. And the Romans, the big Roman Empire and the armies, learned from the tortoise how to defend themselves. And they made big shields. And they would carry them over them. And they would carry them in front of them to stop arrows that might be flying in the air at them. And that's how they learned to defend themselves, was from watching a tortoise. And this tortoise has some other things that he likes. Let's see, what do you think a tortoise eats? Does anyone want to guess? Someone that Docker, do you know what a tortoise might eat?
Lettuce.
Correct. Lettuce is a type of plant, isn't it? And these guys are plant eaters. There's a name for plant eater. It's a big word. I wonder if anyone knows it. What's the big word that means plant eater? Let's try Lydia.
Vegetarian.
Vegetarian's a good big word for plant eater. I like it. There's another one too. That's a good answer. That's right. And let's try Nolan. Sure. Yeah, it starts with an H. And Liam, I think, behind knows.
Herbivore.
Herbivore. Can you guys say herbivore? Mr. Ralph is never going to eat meat. You could try to offer it to him, but he can't digest it. And the boy tortoises, they're kind of indented on the bottom, and the girl tortoises are kind of rounded on the bottom. So he's a boy, and he is one who will cruise around in about 3 to 4 acres of land and call that his home. That's maybe about 3 or 4 times the size of the average yard that a house is on. Now, one thing that Ralph can do is he can go visiting neighbor tortoises, and they call that social. Tortoises are social animals. Do you like to visit a friend's house? Yeah, me too. And yes, he will go and visit a friend's house and say hi, and they don't get into too many fights, but he doesn't know how to swim. So if he gets into a deep river or lake, he'll have to hold his breath, tuck in, and hope he can float long enough to hit some land, because he's not very good at swimming, and sometimes they don't do well in water, and they can get in a lot of trouble. So they're designed by God to be on the land. And the other thing that's real interesting is they live in real cold country. I know it gets cold here, or where maybe some of you live, but where he lives, it can get down to 40 and 50 degrees below zero. And that's pretty cold for anybody, much less a reptile, which is a cold-blooded animal. And so you know what he does? He'll burrow down deep in the ground, and he'll stay there for 8 months. And he'll kind of be sort of asleep. It's kind of like hibernating, but they call it brumation. And he'll stay there and won't eat much, won't drink much for 8 months. And then he's only active from March to June. That's his whole year. March, April, May, and June, he'll come out and eat and forage on plants, like Docker said. And then he goes back in his hole. Isn't that funny? He spends most of his life sleeping, like maybe some of your older brothers and sisters. Well, let's see. Would you like to pet a tortoise? You can scratch his back, but stay away from his head. Any animal with a mouth can bite, and so you can say hi to him. And if you don't want to, just fold your arms on your chest, and I'll keep him away from you. That's our language to know that you would rather not pet the tortoise. Say, hi, Ralphie. And so Ralphie here would like to go digging, but he's okay to be sociable. He's not afraid of people at all. And he's used to seeing kids. He likes kids. Ralph is another word. I think you guys know the word nocturnal. No. We talked about it. That means that you're active when, Miss Noah. What does nocturnal mean?
You're active at night.
Active at night. She's right. And this guy, he's not nocturnal, and he's not diurnal. He is, let's learn a new word. This is a hard one. You ready, guys? Can you say crepuscular? That's a tough one. That means active at sunrise and sunset. And that's when he likes to go hunting, is right around the time of sunrise and sunset. So how fast do you think Ralph is? Do you think he's very fast? Well, you might be surprised. He can move at speeds close to a slow human jog, or 5 miles an hour. So if we put him down, and he was really wanting to run, he could run from one end of this table to the other a lot faster than he is now. But he's just cruising right now. He has just enough protection. He knows just how to burrow and stay away from the water. And God and Jesus designed him special so that he would live in a place that could get cold and he can survive. That reminds me of a story in the Bible where there was somebody that needed just enough money to pay taxes. I think you've heard about it. And in fact, when they asked Jesus if he paid taxes, Jesus said, no problem, we can fix that. And he asked his helper to go and catch a fish. And what do you think was in the fish's mouth? A coin. And was it more money than they needed or less money than they needed? Or just exactly what they needed? Exactly what they needed. You know, when Jesus answers your need, sometimes he even gives you abundantly more, but he always gives us just what we need. Did you know that? He gives you just what you need just in time. He said, your bread and water will be sure, and he'll take care of you. So what's interesting is that it was a surprise to his disciple when he found that coin in the fish. You're not used to finding coins in fish's mouths. That doesn't usually happen. Have you ever been fishing? Anyone here been fishing and caught a fish? Liam, you have? Have you ever found a coin in a fish's mouth?
No.
Would you be surprised?
Very.
Very. I would be very surprised. And it's actually very surprising what some of the designs that God gave the tortoise. There's another surprising design. Sometimes the mother tortoise will lay 12 eggs. Bury them right there in the dirt. And sometimes she'll lay them too late in June. And the cold winter comes in quick up in Russia. And then the eggs can't hatch in their usual time. Did you know that Jesus allowed them in a surprising way to have those eggs wait and hatch 8 months later? In the next March, those eggs will just stay right there, kind of half frozen and chilled, but not really all the way frozen. And then later, little baby tortoises will come out. By the way, let's see, do you know what they call a group of tortoises? Like a group of birds might be a flock of birds, or a group of cows might be a herd of cows. But what if you had a group of Russian tortoises? It's kind of a funny word. It's called a creep. A creep of tortoises, if you have more than 3 of them moving together, that means they're kind of creeping along, right? Maybe because they're slow, they call it that. All right, do some of you have any questions about the tortoise that you would like to ask? Sure, let's see what Jude has to say.
How long can it live?
Good question. The Russian tortoise can live to be 50 years old. So he can live almost as long as a person. And so if you got one as a pet, he would live a long time. A lot longer than your cat or dog, right? You had a question?
Can he take it home?
Okay. Docker, did you have a question? No problem. So we have one over here with Alexia.
Do they make good pets?
They do. The reason they make good pets is they're friendly and they're vegetarian herbivores, very calm. Usually we call that docile. Docile means not too anxious or pushy, and they don't bite people. And you had a question too, Rosalind? Sorry?
How old is he?
This one here's about 12 years old. And we thank you, boys and girls, for coming today to Kids Camp. I hope you remember Jesus will take care of you always.